Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to do the fourth teaching on how to work with fear. And today we're going to look into the antidotes that we can apply in order to lessen the fear. But before we go into that, I'll give a little review of what we have done so far. And if you want to have details on the teachings so far, please go to YouTube and watch the videos of the teachings. They're all there. So what we started with is we explore what fear is and how it gets triggered. And then we spoke about the similarity between the fear of human beings and the fear of animals. And also about the differences between the fear that we as human beings experience and the fear that animals experience. And the main difference is that human beings, we do not only react to immediate threats to our life, but we also react when we hear about threats or possible threats, or when we think that there might be a threat. And also when we see others suffering or others in fear, that triggers our own fear as well. Have you ever noticed that when you see on the television, on the news, you see all the horror stories of what is going on in the world, it triggers your own emotion. You experience a similar thing as what the people experience that are going through that experience in real time. So that is very specific for human beings. And so when we work with the mind, we have to pay attention to that, right? If our fear gets triggered because we think there might be a danger, there is already a solution in that. You know, we can check reality. Is there a real danger? Or, and also what can I do in order to prevent myself being in the condition of that danger? So when fear arises in the mind, then we can see that both our body and our mind, they react. They get a stress response. And we call that also the fight and flight response. Once that gets triggered, for instance, you hear in the news, you know, there are going to be millions of people dying, that fear response gets triggered. And once it gets triggered, it is very difficult to turn it off. So then even if you hear other stories that are more in accordance with reality, somehow that fear is still there. And so we still react coming from that fear. So the fear gets triggered. We link the fear to our attachment. So for instance, if we have the feeling that we cannot get what we want, or if we hear that there is a lack of something that we need, or if we feel threatened in our life, in our family's life, in our home, in our job, you know, then the stress response gets triggered. So that is independence on our attachment, which in Buddhism we say we are living here in the desire realm. Desire is what makes that each and everybody of us came here. Desire is our main delusion, and we use desire to survive. So when our survival is at stake, our survival reaction, the fear, the stress response gets triggered, right? That's a totally normal reaction. That is part of being in the desire realm, right? So we're not going to change that reaction. What we're going to try to do is to look like what kind of reaction is useful and what kind of reaction is too much. What kind of reaction is actually not in accordance with reality. And so in order to do that, we're going to apply antidotes to ground ourselves more in reality, to connect ourselves more with reality. So what we also did is we looked into our delusions, and we can say in general that the characteristic of delusions is that they exaggerate qualities of an object, whether that is positive, like what attachment does, or negative, like anger does. And so when we see something that we believe has positive qualities, we crave for that. And when we believe something has negative qualities, we want to be separated from that. That is how we are reacting all the time. Another characteristic of our delusions is that our delusions believe that what we see, what we experience is real, totally real, right? If I fall in love with somebody, that person is really the most fantastic person in the world, right? If somebody says, oh, that person is actually not a good person, we say, how can you say that? I see it, it's true. He's a really, really nice person, right? So that believing in reality, that is something that the delusions do. And the stronger the delusions, you know, or maybe I should say, the stronger our belief in reality, then that is almost like a very fertile ground for strong delusions to arise. So we looked into why we use attachment and aversion. And attachment and aversion are actually, if we check how the mind works and how we engage in actions, then we can see that attachment is that what we believe is going to make us happy. And aversion is that what we believe is going to separate us from our suffering. And so we looked into how society has been feeding our attachment, right? As the way to success, as a way to better health, as a way to more beauty. Anything that you want, you can achieve if you just want to go for it, right? That is attachment. Every success you want to achieve, if you just do it to achieve that success, it's coming from attachment. So attachment has been used for many, many years as a means to, it always comes with a promise, it's going to make you happy. If you're going to be successful, we see that as being more happy. If you're going to be more healthy, we see that as being more happy. If you have more money, we see that as are going to be more happy. Everything that we can get more of, we believe it's going to make me more happy. And so living in society like that, and then the other thing that we have done is that we almost, I don't know, are we allowed to experience the other side of reality? You know, the unpleasant experiences, negative emotions, sadness, grief, loneliness. How much space is there in society to deal with that? Right. And so I think last time we saw that we have trouble dealing with the unpleasant feelings that arise in the mind. We do not know how to be with them and how to create a space where they can arise and then dissolve back into the mind. So I think society is a little bit like the stock market. We just want to go up, 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 up. And we do not want to go into the recession or into the depression. They even call it the depression. We do not want to go there because depression is the same as being poor, having nothing, losing everything, being a loser yourself, not being able to succeed, right? This comes with a lot of unpleasant conceptualization on top of the unpleasant feeling. So trying to find your happiness in getting more, in having a good reputation, having success, and trying to avoid the opposite of that. We call that the 8 worldly concerns. Can you remember that? We talked about how that is driving us constantly. I want more comfort, I want less discomfort. Every moment of our life, that is what we are doing. So what is underneath all that is our self-grasping mind and our self-cherishing mind. Underneath that is our self-centeredness. You know, it is all about me. I want to be happy. I want to be free of suffering. Right? This is our state of mind. You know, we have to The better we can see that, the better we understand that. And the better we also accept that it is like that. You know, it is not a fault that we have. It is an ignorance. It is a blindness that we have from the beginning. Not just from this life, but from the beginning. So it is not something that we can blame ourselves for. Right? I think seeing that we have this not knowing, this blindness, should be a cause for our own compassion. Because the blindness makes that we create so much suffering for ourselves and also for others. So then looking into attachment and anger, or attachment and aversion, how that are our tools to find happiness and to break free from suffering. After that, we looked into the deceitful nature of attachment and anger. And actually all the delusions are deceitful. They promise us something, but if you really check, they never deliver what they promised. Attachment promises stable happiness, lasting happiness, and coming closer to the object. And if we check, that lasting happiness is never going to come. The satisfaction is never going to come. And we might even lose the object. Right? Attachment is not a guarantee that we hold on to the object. We believe that, but it's not true. So we have to investigate in our own mind. And then there is aversion and anger that promises us to free us from all suffering and from separate us from the suffering. And if we check, and I think we did it last time extensively, we check in the mind what happens when aversion and anger arises in the mind. That in itself is already a suffering mind. So we think, I want to be free from suffering, and what do? We react with something that creates more suffering. And then when that mind arises, the actions that we do under the influence of that mind, they are never helpful actions. You know, they bring us into trouble. So then what my suggestion was like, what if we turn that around? You know, what if unpleasantness, which we really don't like, and where we do not really know what to do with that, if we would be able to sit with that and to be with that, to feel that, and then knowing the nature of feelings, they come and they go, you know. So once we have been with the feelings, they somehow dissolve back into the mind. If we would be able to do that, then with that we would be okay with unpleasant feelings that arise. So no aversion, no attachment, or definitely less aversion and less anger, definitely less aversion and less anger. And also what we do at the moment is that when we feel not well, we look something to distract ourselves. You know, what can I do to make myself feel good? I don't know, what do you do when you want to feel good? You go for a walk, you buy yourself some new shoes, you I don't know, have a nice coffee, whatever. We do a lot in order not to feel the displeasure that we experience. And so it somehow we distract ourselves, and for that we use the energy of attachment. So if we know how to be with unpleasant feelings, there is also no need anymore to distract ourselves from that. So then less attachment in the mind. So I think that is like a very important key to happiness. If we would be able to just apply that one, life would already change so much. So we spoke last time about how to do that and how to be with the unpleasant feelings. And we spoke about being with the unpleasant feelings means being in the present moment, being mindful of what is happening in your body and in your mind. And then have kind self-talk. Talk kindly to yourself. Right? At the moment when unpleasant feelings arise, we are not so nice to ourselves. So change that self-talk. Say to yourself what you would say to your best friend. And then what we also do is we remember that what we experience is a shared human experience. It's not just me. Right? When we are in pain, we feel disconnected. Pain is a sign of not being connected with the whole. And so the experience of pain and displeasure comes with the feeling of being disconnected. And we can experience a lot of loneliness within unpleasant feelings. So then remembering that, well, this is a human experience. You know, you're not alone in this. Many human beings experience this. And I think I ask you to practice that this week, right? Has anyone done that? Or would you like to share something of your experience? And while I give you some space for that, I'm going to look at a question in the chat box. Okay. So there was a question, I'll just go a little bit back to fear and about that we can use fear in order to create, basically in order to get power, right? And we talk in relationship to kids, but we can do that in any relationship where we feel we have authority. You know, when we are in charge of a project, when we are the boss, we feel that people depend upon us, and so we can use fear as a way to control and to manipulate people. But you have to check where you're coming from. Sure, you can do that. And it has happened and still happens in many places in the world. But what kind of person are you if you need to use fear in order for people to listen to you? You know, what kind of person, what is going on in your own heart? If you use fear, are you using connection or are you already disconnected? I personally think that fear shows a lot of, how you say that? Incapacity to use skillful means, you know. Many times parents can get very angry at children and still fear on them because they simply do not know how to do it in another way. I think there is a lot behind that, why you use that. Yeah. And if you see that you use that, you have to check into the authority that you want to be, and if you can be an authoritative person in another way, right? Working together is creating an atmosphere where everybody feels safe, where everybody feels that they have their own place, and where everybody feels free to express in however they feel is most beneficial. So what if you use that kind of leadership? You are the coordinator. You are the one who is holding everything together. You are the one who is maybe giving some direction to where the whole group is going. So it is good. Maybe you have to look up on the internet where you methods that you could use to instill authority, but not with fear. I grew up in a lot of fear. I'm still trying to go beyond that. It's very unpleasant, very unhealthy. Fear, what it does to our health is you should look into that. It destroys your immune system. It is not good for your heart. It's not good for your breathing. All your muscles, they start to become stiff and rigid. The oxygen cannot go there anymore. So many problems in the body when you have a lot of fear in your mind. You do not want to instill that on anyone, you know. Please find another method. Let me go. Okay, so now I'm going to look at what people did this week. I allowed myself to feel sad this week, and I noticed it passed quicker than if I tried to distract myself. Yay! Very good discovery. Yes, I tried. I was supposed to visit friends next week, but that is not possible now. I felt sad about that, and I allowed myself to feel sad. And then I called these friends and we talked about that. That made me feel better. Yay! Fantastic. Beautiful. Beautiful. Already within 1 week. So do it another week and see if your self-compassion improves and if it makes you be more comfortable, more relaxed with yourself, and therefore more relaxed with others. All right? So knowing that taking on unpleasant feelings helps us to move quicker through that unpleasantness and also diminishes our delusions, then we can think about, okay, so what is, then we have less delusions, but then how do I find happiness, right? Because if I don't have attachment or less attachment, how do I going to get my pleasure, my happiness? And if I have less anger, less aversion, how do I protect myself? So in Buddhism, what helps us to get pleasure and or even what happiness is something very, very different than what we know as happiness so far. And I'm not sure if I already spoke about that, but what we call happiness is, in Buddhism actually, is pleasure. And what Buddhism calls happiness, real happiness refers to a state of freedom, a state of mind in which the delusions do not arise. That freedom of delusions is happiness. And that quality of that happiness is so different from the quality of the happiness that we experience at the moment, right? The happiness, which is pleasure that we have, you know, we eat something, we go somewhere, we see something beautiful, we hear something nice, we have some kind of pleasure, and then it always goes down, right? We cannot keep it up here. We cannot entertain ourselves with anything, with what we hear, what we see, what we taste, and keep the pleasure up. It doesn't work like that. We only can keep the pleasure up by switching what we are doing, where we are engaging in what kind of sense object we are engaging. We need to switch, because the nature of pleasure is that it comes and goes. So when we stay with the object, pleasure arises in the mind and then it dissolves back into the mind. Once it starts to dissolve, we might still okay for a little bit, and then we start to look for something else. Right? And then we go up again, and then it dissolves back. So we are very busy the whole day in order to sustain that level, a certain level of pleasure. That's the nature of pleasure. That's the nature of the happiness that we know. So the happiness in Buddhism that we strive for is an absence of all these ups and downs. And then some people say, oh, that will be boring. I quite enjoy going up and down, because then every time when I go up, you know, I have another kick of pleasure that I experience. But the pleasure, which is a freedom from the delusions, the quality of that is so intense, is so joyous. It's like open space where you feel like, whoa, this is fantastic. And it's there all the time. It doesn't go up and down. It is stable. It doesn't depend on causes and conditions. It is just a feeling that is in your mind naturally, because it is the natural state of our mind. Right? In the beginning, I think last time somebody asked, I feel so bored, you know, because I cannot go out, I have nothing to do. And I think what we believe is, if I don't follow my attachment, I'm going to be bored. I know that. I know how it feels like. It's not freedom from delusions. It's not that fantastic happiness that I'm talking about. It is actually boring, you know. And I think the boring is still a level of the delusions. I think you have to go through the boredom in order to get to that place where there is total freedom. So for that, you first have to sit with the boredom and say, okay, I'm bored, you know. Yes, what you do is you stop that kick of that comes with attachment. You stop that one. And that feels like, oh, nothing is happening, you know. Some people, they start meditating and they say, oh no, I don't want to do that because I feel emotionally I'm not alive anymore, you know, I don't feel anything anymore. But we have to go through that boredom, through that feeling I don't feel anymore. And I also think that we need to get used to stimulating ourselves less. Right? What we do is we do not want to feel that displeasure. So every time when displeasure comes, we have something to numb that, to not feel that, whether you distract yourself or whether you shut yourself down. And then in order to feel that you're alive, you have to bring in a very strong stimulus in order to feel, yeah, this is fantastic. Now I feel alive again, you know. So if we're going to go back and we're going to say, I'm going to not trigger myself anymore. Yes, there will be a time that we feel like, oh, I need something. I need to do something. I need to feel alive. You know, it's the same as that you are addicted to coffee and you stop with the coffee. You're going to miss the kick that the coffee gives you. And so that lasts for a certain amount of time. And then you start to get used to it. And then you think, oh, this is really nice, you know, and without this artificial stimulus that I gave myself all the time with drinking the coffee, that is gone now. I feel so much more peaceful. And then you're going to enjoy the quality of peacefulness that is in your mind, which is a very different quality as the quality of pleasure. All right, so you have to give yourself some time for that, and you need to tune into a more subtle aspect of your mind. All right. I'm still doing the intro, but I should go to what we are about here today, right? So we were going to talk about the antidotes that we have. I'm just going to get a little bit less sun. The antidotes that we can apply to the different emotions, to the different delusions. So we have seen that fear comes from attachment, and when there is fear, we can also react with aversion and anger. So we're just going to look into the antidotes that we can apply to both of them. So first, attachment. So I already mentioned we are all here because of our attachment. If we would have no attachment, it's unless you're a very special being, but otherwise it's impossible to be born here on this planet. We are here because of our attachment. So, what are the antidotes that we can apply to attachment? The first one is thinking about impermanence and death. Right? Attachment makes us believe that it's going to make us really happy if we going to have something, if we are close to something or somebody, and we want to be with that person forever. If we are or with that thing forever, if we have that, we're going to be really happy. So then when you think about impermanence and death, then first of all, impermanence. You know, if you know the nature of the feelings, that whatever we experience, it's not going to bring us that lasting happiness. Happiness, the pleasure that we experience, what we call happiness, will always become less. We cannot hold on to that. So the experience is impermanent, right? I think they did scientific research with that, you know, we do need a certain kind of basic supply of things. We need shelter, we need food, we need meaning, we need certain things to be happy. But they're very, I think you only need something like $20,000, American dollars, I think it is, to sustain that. Then when you think, I'm going to get a bigger house, I'm going to get a bigger car, I'm going to get a more this, more that, you know, the first moment there was a little, the pleasure, and then the level of happiness goes back to where it was before. So they looked into people who, you know, won lotteries, had $1 million, and what happened to them? You know, first, oh, I'm so happy, and maybe you give things away and you buy things. And then within a year, they were back to where they were before, and some actually were more unhappy because they lost all the money, or, you know, or they lost their friends because they wanted to have their money, or something like that, you know. But the level of happiness doesn't increase with having more. It's very important to know. So things are impermanent. They do not give us lasting happiness, but they also change. They are in a flux all the time. So in relationships, we marry and we promise that we're going to stay with somebody forever, for the rest of our life, but a person will change and you will change. And so there might be a point that you feel like, oh, what brought us together is not there anymore. And I've been going this way, I've been going that way. Maybe it's better if we are not together anymore. Right? Situations change. You know, we can see that very well in this society today. Yesterday you could go to the shop, and then the next day you cannot go to the shop. They closed everything. Or, you know, we had all kinds of rights, and then suddenly they take the rights away. Things are changing all the time. And we forget that. Somehow, due to the way the mind works, we project permanent qualities onto objects, onto human beings, onto our animals. Somehow we think that whatever is happening is more permanent than it is in actuality. Right? And you can check your own mind, you know, how do you think about where you are now, you know? I think I was 27 when I bought my first, 28 maybe, when I bought my first, my only house. And I thought, I'm going to be here forever. I'm going to live here forever. And I think I lived there for 7 years. And then it was time to leave. You never know. Right? Causes and conditions are all the time changing. You might have a very, very good job, and then something happens to the company. It gets broke and your job is gone. you know, and everything that comes with having a good job and having a lot of money, you cannot sustain that anymore. That is the nature of life. And we don't like that. We want it to be always good, right? But life is not like that. Everything that comes into existence will fade out of existence at a certain point in time. And we do not know when that is going to be. So thinking about that and thinking that, you know, yeah, one day, you know, I might have to leave here. And then, I don't know, I visualize often, I pack it all up and I'm going somewhere else and I have no idea where I'm going to go. Or I visualize I have to leave everything behind and I have to go. Right? And so what we do is, we do many things. We build up a pension. And we believe that when we are old, that pension is going to be there, but it might not, right? We pay our whole life and it might be gone because whoever was playing with the money did something stupid. Or things change, you know? We just do not know. So once you know that things can change, you know, that will help you to not hold on to so strongly that this is mine. This is always going to be mine. You do not know. This is with you today, and then feel free to fully enjoy what is with you today. Right? And tomorrow you have to see what is there. And if it's still there, you still enjoy, you enjoy again. But you're willing to let it go. When it goes, it goes. You let it go. Right? I think if the more we can do that, the more we are in the moment. And when we are in the moment, the pleasure that we experience from whatever we enjoy is much bigger than when we start holding on to it. You know, the mind that holds on to is a very tight mind. And when the mind is scared to lose things, it is more difficult for that mind to experience pleasure. Can you see that? So that is a very important one. And you can apply impermanence on everything. You can apply it to everything that you have in terms of material wealth. You can apply it to your relationships, to your children, right? As a parent, you believe your children are always going to be there, but, you know, there are children who die. You do not know. We just do not know what kind of karma we have, what kind of causes and conditions are going to arise for us. You cannot apply it to your body, all the processes that happen in your body, to your body that is changing moment to moment, but is also changing over time. And so every time you do that, think about impermanence. You counteract our very deep habitual tendency to grasp at permanence. Right, a very good antidote. And it's not I'll meditate one time on impermanence and then I get it, right? You have to do this again and again and again because it's really deep. So then the biggest impermanence that we have is our own death, right? We received this body some years ago, and just like everything else, one day this body is not gonna sustain itself anymore. And then we say we're gonna die. And it's something that we do not like to look at. And so we push it away, like, oh, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later, not now. It's still so far away, you know, I'm still young, you know, who's thinking about death? Oh my gosh, so depressive. These Buddhists are so depressive. They always think about death. Right? But why would you think about death? I actually think the more we are aware that one day we're going to die, and that becomes a reality for you, the more you can enjoy your life. But if you say, I do not want to know anything about that, what you're doing is a suffering that is going to come. You push that away. You already know that it's going to come one day, right? Is there anyone who's denying their own death? Is there anyone who believes, well, everyone is going to die, but not me? Maybe, I don't know. I believe that often, that I'm not going to die. And it's very ignorant, right? It's not in accordance with reality. But something in me denies, no, I'm not going to die. So therefore, I don't have to think about it. But I think, I don't know. I think I was smarter when I was young. I think I was 15 or 16 when I realized actually the only certainty that we have in life is that we're going to die. That's the only thing that is certain. All the rest we do not know. Right? So death is certain. But the moment that we're going to die, we do not know. The moment of death can be very far away. Maybe you have another 30, 40, 50 years to live. But it can also be tomorrow, right? We might not wake up tomorrow. We don't know. We can't see. Lama Zopa says we can't even see what is going to happen in the next moment. Right? We are very limited. So we definitely cannot see when our own death is going to come. But it is going to come. And so if we would accept that death is going to come, and really, I'm not talking about intellectually, right? Because you might say, oh, but I know already death is going to come. Yeah, up here in the brain, very up here in the brain, but here in the heart and in your gut, it's like, no way, I'm going to die. True? If we look at what we're doing with death, people who are dying in our society, it's not something that we embrace, is it? I think death is part of life, right? Birth is part of life. We call that the beginning of life. And then I go through life, and then there is a point that I die. And that death process is still part of my life. But what do we do with people who are dying? We don't like to see it. Not many people die at home anymore. And then once they have died, most people do not keep them at home. Right? They go to a funeral place in the freezer. And then you can go and visit. They take them out of the freezer. You can visit and then put them back. That's what we're doing. We don't like death. But the more we would be able to accept death as part of our life, accepting the beginning and accepting the end. What actually happens with our attachment? What happens with the 8 worldly concerns that were driving our attachment? That becomes much less. When we realize that this life is not going to be forever, somehow, you know, I don't know if I would say we're looking for more meaningful things, but I think we become more aware of the choices that we make. And we wonder, is this really what I want to do? Or do I want to do something more meaningful? Or do I want, you know, do I have somewhere a dream that I would like to actualize? And then it is not about holding on to this life, but it is about making the time that you are here most worthwhile. And so when you are focused on making your life more worthwhile, there is much less space in the mind for attachment. It becomes so much less important. True? Can I have a look at the questions? I'll have a look at the questions. Let me go up. Is seeking knowledge also attachment and a desire to know and learn more? So when we talk about attachment, attachment is desire, right? But there is also desire which is not attachment. So for instance, your question, seeking knowledge, you would have to check what is your motivation. If your motivation is just for this life, you know, yeah, you have these Mind Valley people, they always come on my, whatever I open on social media, they pop up, you know. What did they say? Knowledge is power, power means more money, you know. If that is your goal, then wanting to have more knowledge is coming from attachment. But if your goal is, I want to find the truth, I want to find meaning in life, I want to know what life is about, so that I can become a better version of myself, so that I can be better for others, I think that is a very healthy desire. That is not an attachment. That is not just focused on you, it is not just focused on this life. Right. So you check. If it's focused on this life and just for you, it's attachment. But if it's focused on something else, it's not attachment. It is desire, but it is not desirous attachment. Okay. So to appreciate life, death, and taxes. What? I'm not sure anymore about the context for that. Why talking about death to non-Buddhist people sounds negative to them? Because the non-Buddhists, I'm not saying all non-Buddhists, right? But many spiritual traditions, and it is all about wanting to be happy, feeling good. And initially talking about death and thinking about death is not something that we think, oh, I'm going to think about death in order to feel good, right? Thinking about death is something that initially we have trouble even bringing our mind towards that object, that subject. So it is not a pleasurable thing to do. And so then people think, oh, that's negative, you know, the Buddhists are so depressed. I once was in an Indian train, and I was on my own, and I was sitting there with, I think, 7 Russian people and 1 Indian guy. And the Russians tried to say something to me. And then this Indian guy started to translate from Russian into English. And I thought, oh, they're together, right? And then he said, no, we're not together, but I studied in the place where they were coming from, you know? So very strange coming together. Anyway, these Russians, they were Hare Krishna followers, and they were going to a very big festival in Calcutta. And they said, come with us, we're going to dance, we're going to do singing, you wouldn't like it so much. What are you doing? You're a Buddhist, you want to go and retreat, that's so depressive, why would you do that? It is all about enjoying life, not about death, you know. So, I don't know, that's what they say. You try to talk with people about death and then see what happens. Life is about preparing to die. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what we can do, you know, this is, I think, one of the beautiful things that we can do. Death is a huge suffering, for sure. It's a huge suffering. Letting go of everything that we have. Our friends, our family, our wealth, our possessions, our own body, who we believe we are. We have to all let it go, you know. So for sure, that is a huge suffering for any human being going through that. And on the way to death, I think we meet other kinds of suffering. And the more we take on suffering, I think the less we have to do at the end, right? And in that way, we can also prepare for death by taking on the suffering of everyday life, taking on the suffering of getting old, right? The body that is changing all the time, the body that is deteriorating all the time, the body that is functioning less and less well. Taking it on and finding peace in that will help you in that last moment, the last moments of your life, being more peaceful. So we can use our life to prepare for that. But it is not just, you know, like I'm just here to prepare for death. I mean, death is the biggest transformation that we can go through. So the better we prepare for that, the better we can use that moment. It is the beginning of many future lives. So if we make that a good moment, then we can be safe for many future lives. If it is a bad moment, we might end up for many lifetimes in a difficult situation. So preparing for death is really good. We can use daily experiences, but the funny thing is when we do that, life becomes so much more joyous. Right? Never forget that one. Death and taxes were said to be the two certainties, right? Thank you. So I said there was only one certainty that we have, that is that we're going to die. But I hear there is another one, which is we have to pay taxes. It's true. I think life is about creating value before we die. Yes. I mean, that would give our life meaning, isn't it? That we, what makes that our life has value, that there is some meaning to it. So what we do in Buddhism is we think about death in the sense that death is certain. So there is nothing that can stop us from dying, right? It is definitely going to come. So we think about all the beings that have been in the world and that they're all going to die or have died, right? Even the very famous ones, they died. Even the very rich ones, they died. Even the kings and the queens, they die. Right? So you go through all human beings and they all die. They all have to die. No matter what qualities you have to die. And so the more you reflect on that, it becomes more real, like, oh my gosh, yeah, if they all have died, it becomes more true for you too. You know, you also gonna die one day. And so we do not know how long we have, but what we do know is that we cannot really extend life, but every step that we are going, we are moving towards death. Right? That's also a nice one to think about. Every step that we make, our life is shorter. Our life is shorter. So we can only use this moment. We need to use it well. When we are young, you know, and I still feel that you think, oh, I still have so much time. So much time. I'll worry about that later. And only when you get really older, you start to feel, I'm not having all that time anymore. You know, now I have to make sure that I'm going to do what I really want to do. But then you actually already lost a lot of time. Right? So when you're still young, please don't think you still have a lot of time. You actually do not know how long you still have. We have no clue. you know. And even if we would still have a lot of time, if we check how much time we use for sleeping, eating, cooking, just sustaining the body, there's not so much time left. Not even in a day, not much time left. So in a week, not much time left. And so sometimes we feel like, but I'm very strong, you know, I'm not going to die. My body is healthy. I have a lot of money. I can afford, you know, when I'm going to be sick, I'm going to afford a good doctor. But we do not know what will happen, you know. A virus might come. And then suddenly the body is very fragile. Right? You might have a small wound from something and you get an infection in it, and you might die. A bacteria that you can't even see, it might kill you. So although the body might appear as being very strong and very healthy, when certain causes and conditions come together, death can arise very easily. So this is really good to think about. Every day, you know, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. This might be your last day. You do not know. Death is going to come for certain. I don't know when it's going to come. And then see what happens in your mind. You know, if you're going to get different priorities or not. I would be interested in hearing from that. Okay. So then I'll talk a little bit about other antidotes to attachment. But impermanence and death, reflecting on impermanence and death is the main antidote to attachment. At a certain point, what it does to the mind is that you're not so concerned anymore with the 8 worldly concerns. You know, if you're going to die, you don't care so much what people are going to say about you. You know, when you know that you're not going to be here forever, you don't care so much about how much you gather in terms of material wealth. If you realize, you know, etc., etc. And so the 8 worldly concerns is what fuels our attachment. So once we realize, when we start some kind of realization around death, if we get that in our own mind, the 8 worldly concerns will lessen, our attachment will lessen. The mind will be more free. And when the mind is more free, it is more peaceful, more at ease. And that feels happy inside, in the heart, you know. Not excitement, but happy in the heart. Okay, so what else we can do in order to lessen attachment is being content with what we have. Being content with living comfortable, but simple. Right? If you look into how much we need to do in order to sustain the life that we have, it's huge effort. That's one of the reasons that eventually I thought I stopped working, because in order to work, for me to be able to work and make the money, I have to put in so much time and so much money. What am I doing? What am I doing? You know, I feel like this rat going around and around and around. So making life more simple and being happy with that. That helps to counteract attachment. And then also, you know, attachment is very much a self-centered mind. So when we start thinking about wishing others to be happy, developing loving kindness in our mind, thinking about others, that all helps to reduce our attachment. That is in terms of attitude. And then in terms of view, we can think about, are things really that beautiful? Are things really that fantastic that I need to go for that? Are things really going to make me happy when I get that? Check the reality of it. You know? There was a time that I liked to go to a bakery and get these very yummy things to eat, you know, but they're not good for my body. So afterwards I feel horrible. But I like to see them, right? So then I started to change, and I would go to the bakery and I just look at the things and then contemplate. And is this going to make you happy? No, it's not going to make me happy. It's not going to make me happy. I still like to see it, but I'm not going to buy it because it's going to make me sick, actually, you know. So contemplate, is it really true what my mind is telling me? That when I have that, I'm going to be more happy. Is that really true? How long is it going to make me happy? And is it real happiness? Is it real satisfaction? Okay. Okay, next time there's a question about future lives. I can talk next time about future lives. So I want to say a little bit about the antidotes to anger, and then we leave it there for today. Is that okay? You still have the energy to listen to that? Yes, I see some nodding people. Okay, okay. Anger. So anger has two main antidotes. Anger is the mind that is disturbed by harm. And anger is a mind that wishes to harm, right? These are two aspects of the mind. The mind is disturbed and the mind wishes to harm. So we can use both of them. Sometimes we feel very upset, but we do not have a wish to harm, right? So that is an aspect where we can apply the antidote of patience. So the disturbed mind, we try to we apply the antidote to that of practicing patience. And to the mind that is so angry that it wants to harm, we practice loving kindness. Okay? So I'll explain both. So the mind that is disturbed by harm, that is a mind that is upset, and then that might want to engage in harmful actions, but maybe not, you know, maybe it's just very agitated. So patience is the mind that is undisturbed by harm. So how can we create a mind like that? And harm means suffering. How can we bear the suffering? And so I think that is being with the unpleasant feelings that arise without going into the reaction to that, without saying, I don't want that, you know, being okay with suffering that we experience. The more we can be with that, the less the mind will be disturbed. The disturbed mind is actually a mind that says, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to have this, just get it out of my life, right? But if you say, okay, I have that, I'll take it, I'll bear that suffering. The more we can bear the suffering, the less the mind will be disturbed. Right? And we practiced that last time, how to take on negative experiences, how to be with that, how to be kind to ourselves when that arises. So that's one way. And then the second one is practicing loving kindness. So if we're really angry and we want to harm others, or we have the thought about, you know, you can even visualize that a person is experiencing some kind of misfortune or harm or suffering, and then you feel kind of happy. No, this is when somebody has hurt us and we're very angry, we want to hurt them back. We also visualize that they experience hurt and dependence upon other conditions. So that mind is, although you might think, ha, 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 you know, that person is going to suffer. If you really check, it's not a mind that is happy. It is a suffering mind. So in order to change that, we try to wish that other person happiness. We wish them everything they want, everything they need, that it's coming to them manyfold. And we can even visualize it's coming from us. We're going to give it to them freely. We pour it out. You have what you want. Please be happy. I want you to be happy. If you can sincerely wish that to a person that you actually feel angry with, the anger cannot stay in the mind. right? Because these are two opposite minds. The mind that wants to harm and the mind, so the mind of anger and the mind of loving kindness, they're opposite minds. They cannot arise together in relation to the same object. Okay. I think attachment is a much bigger problem for us than anger. But we also have some anger in the mind. I know that. So other ways as antidotes to anger is that, you know, you think about impermanence and death. Sometimes you might be very angry with a person, and then you realize, you know, but you know, he might die tomorrow, I might die tomorrow, and then what? Is this how we want to separate? Or, you know, or thinking about impermanence and death can also be, you know, this is just one thing that happens in this life, but this life is actually only this big in the whole big picture of so many lifetimes. So what is the need to hold on to anger? You know, it's really, what happens is maybe insignificant if you see the whole big picture. Then we can remember karma, that whatever we're going to do, you know, it's going to come back to us. Do you want that? Maybe not. And so then, and also a good way of reflecting is, you know, we think, I'm so angry, I'm going to do something, you know. But what if you would say, there is anger in the mind. Anger is in the mind, but anger is not my mind. Anger is not my I. Anger arises in the mind due to causes and conditions, and I'm going to let it dissolve back into my mind. Anger is not who I am. Anger arises due to causes and conditions. If I experience harm, it's natural that anger arises. But I don't have to identify with that. I don't have to become that. I can let it arise and it will dissolve back into the mind. All right. So and sometimes anger, I think, is also connected to, you know, we get angry when we don't get what we want. And so if we have expectations of people, of life, of a boss, of whoever, and the people cannot fulfill these expectations, then it's very easy for anger to arise in the mind because we do not get what we want. But then maybe we have to check our expectations. Instead of blaming the other person that they don't give us what we want, we think, how realistic were my expectations? Maybe I projected something onto that person that person cannot give. You know? Then if I have strong needs, how can I give that to myself? Or maybe I can go to somebody else and ask if they can fulfill my need. Okay, do you know what I'm talking about? See some smiling people. Is that a yes? Yes. Okay. So somehow I skipped the antidotes that we can do in general for any delusion. Maybe I'll leave that for next time because we already have covered some of them. And then next time I'll start with that, just how we can counteract the delusions in general. And then I like to explain a little bit about the nature of reality, contemplating the nature of reality, conventional reality and ultimate reality, and how that helps us to counteract the self-grasping mind, you know, that mind that holds on to me, and from that attachment and aversion arises. So if we can lessen that grasping of the me then also attachment and aversion will be less strong, right? So we'll do that, and then we can talk about mind training. And mind training is related to changing the self-cherishing attitude, the attitude that feels, well, my happiness is more important than your happiness, right? That's what we believe. That's how we act, at least. My happiness or my suffering is much bigger than your suffering, right? Our self-importance. So we can change that with mind training. So we will talk about these two. These are big antidotes that is really going to the core of everything where fear comes from. And I will also mention, I'll have to do a little bit fast talking maybe next time. I want to talk about where does fear coming from Buddha's perspective, right? Because yes, fear is connected to attachment, but it is more than that. So we can, I think it is important to hear that and then use that for reflecting on your own life. Maybe you can do something with that. So that's quite a lot. I hope I can do that. If not, we'll add another session, but I think I do want to try to finish that. I will do a shorter introduction next time. Right now we have some more time to go into new material. So if we would finish next time and talking how to work with fear, I would be happy to keep giving you teachings if there is a need, right? If you feel like, oh no, I had enough of it, or I need a break, that's fine too. But if you feel that it would be useful for you to continue teaching about something, I would like to know what is useful for you in this period of time in the world to talk about, right? And you can either put it in the chat box or this time or next time, or you can send me a message on Facebook or WhatsApp. And then I'll decide from there what somehow jumps out of it. Maybe more people have the same need. And then next time I'll let you know what we're going to do. So I'm going to upload this video again on the YouTube channel. And so if you want to watch it again, it should be there by tomorrow. And also if you have missed other sessions that you would like to see, you can go to the YouTube channel, and it's called Lungdup Jamyang. Just my name. And then there are the teachings and the meditations that we have been doing. On Tuesday we have another meditation session. I'm not sure yet what we're going to do, but I'll try to let it try to do a topic similar than the other ones. You know, I think on the nature of the mind, that is very helpful. And maybe we're going to look into the nature of attachment and aversion, and how we can look at that in a different way, so that that also helps to lessen attachment and aversion. All right. Thank you very much for being here, and I hope to see you all next time.